뚜뚜. udah berani muncul ya. Sangat kuat di sini. Sama lantai goblok. Apa dong? Lucu. Periton bangke. Aduh. Share dulu tapi Betul. Halo. Masuk sih tapi packnya
First things first is that you need to go to the link in my description. First things first is that you need to go to the link in my description and download the files. Once you've downloaded these files, you need to then run those files, and once you've run those files, you can close your browser. Then you open your browser again, and then go into your browser settings and find the camera settings. Once you've found your camera settings, select the new camera that the two files have made for you. For me, it is HD camera C9 22X. For you, it might be something different. Once you have selected that,
No. Nggak mau keluar anjing. Lucunya seperti itu dia. Masih coba-coba ya. LSP, apa LSP kan? Itu juga. Maybe something different. Seba. Bodoh.
first things first is that you need to go to the link in my description. Download it, run those browser. Then go into your settings. You found your camera made for you. For me, it is HD camera C9 22X. For you, it might be something different. Once you have selected that, close your browser once again. If you're using a camera in OBS, to use it on Omi TV, you need to deactivate it first in OBS, then go to your device manager. You can search it, or you can right click your start, enable it, activated, and disable it. You make sure that you have your virtual cam running, and then you need to re-enable your camera in the device manager in OBS. To people and have
anjing. Apa LSP cam? I became live on. What is for? SD kameranya nggak muncul ya. Ngapain? Lihat. Buahnya. Maybe something different. Okay. Okay, fine. Disable dulu. Orang ini aja terlalu sering. Kebolak malah. Gagal cok. Gua ngerek selama. KLM sobar. Lagi di goblok. Lama bener kok nggak apa-apa. KLM open. PW32 proses secara ID 860. Pak 60 BB3 10. Referal Society. Macam. Era saya 860 BB3. Living model instance. Dulu dengan Dragon ya. Oh. Godgame juga masih hidup lagi. Gile pos, udah rame tuh. Gak gerak AFK bang, AFK di dalam. Kau hancurkan aku. Cinta ini membunuhku. Bisa. Masih ada. Ini belum keluar teman-teman.
Accidentally twitch or press down the foot pedal a little too long and end up with a 2-piece blade instead of a 1-piece blade. Once I'm done forging out the tang, I let the billet cool down slowly, and then I prepare the wheel in my surface grinder. I'm about to surface grind a lot of material away from both sides of our Damascus blade. Currently the blade is about 3/4 of an inch thick. I want to grind about 1/4 of an inch off of each side of the blade.
I got the blade thinned down to 270 thousandths of an inch thick. I also went over it with a 320 grit belt and then left it in the ferric chloride for a few minutes just so we could see how the Damascus pattern is looking. Now is finally the time to remove this sheath material. I'm gonna use a Sharpie and just lightly mark around the mild steel. I can see it because we etched it, and we're gonna bandsaw off all that material there.
We don't want any of the sheath material in the final knife blade because it's made from mild steel, not high carbon steel like the rest of our blade. So that sheath material won't harden up properly and it won't hold an edge properly either. While I'm at the grinder, I think I'll go ahead and profile the rest of the blade and shape our tang and get it cleaned up a little bit too.
This knife's finally starting to look like a dagger now that we've got the tang, ricasso, and blade roughed in. I'm loving the way this looks. I think the Damascus pattern is also super cool, and it's just gonna keep getting cooler as we grind in those blade bevels. Let's get the blade into the heat treating oven. It's already up to like 1400 degrees right now. I'm gonna let it come up the rest of the way to temperature, 1525, and then let the blade soak for about 5 minutes. Okay. Here we go. Grabbing the tang of the blade and the quench. Okay, that's probably good enough. It's barely smoking now. I'm gonna stick it in the oven for 2 hours at 425 degrees. Now that this blade's been normalized, hardened, and tempered, the heat treating process is pretty much finished. So for now, I wanna start profiling this blade.
I rough profiled the blade earlier when I ground away that sheath material, but now I'm really fine tuning it, making sure that the tip of the blade and the sides of the blade are nice and symmetrical. Once I'm done profiling the blade, I mount it up in my milling machine. I use my milling machine to cut in a fuller, sometimes known as a blood groove, on both sides of the blade. After milling in the fuller, I sand the fuller. For this, I'm using a drill, a tiny brass rod with a slot on the end of it, and some sandpaper wrapped around it. After finishing up the fuller, it's time to grind in our edge bevels. I use a sharp, super coarse 36 grit belt to hog away the material at first. As I grind, I switch it up to finer and finer grit belts as I near completion of the bevel grinding process. Now it's time to transition from grinding the edge bevels to hand sanding the edge bevels. I want to keep everything as crisp and clean as I can as I'm hand sanding, because sometimes hand sanding can have a tendency of rounding over your crisp lines and making things look less defined. This will keep my sandpaper nice and flat and help me keep everything just a little bit more crisp and clean as I hand sand.
The blade is almost at the stage where I move on and start working on the guard and handle. There's just one other thing we gotta finish up, and that's the ricasso. And part of finishing up the ricasso is putting on my maker's mark.
I'm going to be etching in my maker's mark with electricity. I've got a DC current running through this electrode. The electricity eats away at the steel, leaving a nice deep maker's mark that's never going to rub off.
Let's jump right in and start on the guard. I already cut a chunk of steel to make the guard out of. Now we can chuck this up in the milling machine and remove this material right here. I'm gonna remove it all the way down, something like this.
I've got the milling machine turning very fast right now, and using this large 3/4 inch cutter, it was actually throwing some very hot 500-degree chips right on my hands as I was turning the knobs. Sometimes I start with a big block of steel and then remove material with the mill and grinders until it looks like a guard. And sometimes I like to forge the guards to shape. It kind of just depends project to project. On this project, I wanted to start with a good sized block and then just grind and mill away stuff until it looks like the guard on my sketch that I'm following. My dad set up a digital readout for the milling machine, which makes operations like this so much easier and quicker. Now I'm using my high-speed dental burr. It's kind of like a Dremel tool, but instead of only turning at 35,000 RPM, it turns at 320,000 RPM. I like to hammer my guards on for a nice tight fit.
At this point, we're done fitting the guard and we can move on to profiling the guard more in this direction, because right now these are pretty chunky on the sides and I want to start getting the actual profile of the guard nailed down before we move on to the rest of the fittings.
I start by giving myself some layout lines to follow, and then I move over to the milling machine to square up the ends of the guard. If I have the ends of the guard square and symmetrical to each other, it'll make shaping at the 2x72 a lot easier. After profiling the guard, I want to fit the front spacer. Fitting the front spacer is the same as what I did on the guard, only I want it to fit slightly looser. I don't want it to wibble wobble around, but I do want to be able to have it fit nicely, but yet be able to take it off without hammering on the end of the tang quite so hard.
I messed with the fit up of the front spacer a little bit, and here's how it fits up against the guard. It does go on and off very easy, but like I said, it doesn't wobble at all, so that's very good. Next thing we need to do is lay out the shape of the tang on the block of wood so we can start making the slot in the wood for the tang.
Next, we're moving on to the handle. I need to make about a 3.5-inch long slot in this piece of wood in order to accommodate the rest of the tang. Big shout out to my buddy Corin in Australia. I love this cutter he gave me. It cuts away the wood so quickly, so clean and smoothly. It leaves a very nice flat surface and makes fitting my handles a little bit easier. Next, I need to turn the slot into an actual rectangular slot, because right now it still has rounded sides from the round drill bits. So to do this, I use one of my homemade broaches. It's just a little scraper that has one tooth on the end.
Now that the handle fits to the blade properly, I want to add some lineup pins between the front spacer and handle material. The lineup pins will make it so the handle locates back to the exact same place every single time.
I like to start by drilling my lineup pin holes in the front spacer. Once the holes are established in the front spacer, I can use CA glue to glue the wood portion of the handle, and then take that entire assembly off and use those established holes in the front spacer to then drill down into the wood. That way everything lines up properly and the handle and front spacer fit on the knife together. With just a little bit of heat, the CA loses its strength and I can lightly tap the front spacer off, clean the CA glue, and add my lineup pins.
Next, we'll see how the front spacer fits with the wood. Oh, beautiful. I know you couldn't feel that, but it had a nice amount of a resistance when I slid that on there. That's about perfect. There's one more thing I like to do while the knife's at this stage, and that is to bed the handle in epoxy.
With the bedding process, we're going to fill the handle up with a high quality epoxy. We're going to coat the tang of the knife in Vaseline so the epoxy won't stick to it, and then assemble the entire knife and let the epoxy cure. This will make it so we get 100% contact and a nice fit between the inside of the handle and the tang of the knife blade.
And try to put it straight in there. Okay, we've got epoxy starting to come out already. That's looking good.
Tomorrow.
Now that the handle's bedded in epoxy, it's ready to go for shaping.
Once I get the handle profiled and thinned down to the right thickness, I then begin shaping the outside edges of the handle. I don't want the sides of the handle to be flat. I want them to have a nice sculpted, kind of rounded feel to them. After shaping and sanding the handle, I now know the final shape of the handle, so I can transfer that onto my front spacer and go ahead and continue shaping that front spacer down to its final shape.
The last thing to shape on the guard are the two quillions, the part that sticks out on the two ends. These are still really wide and we want to shape those down and give them a nice taper.
I like to wait to shape the sides of my guard down until after the handle is shaped. The reason being, I never really know exactly how thick my handle's gonna be, and I like to base the thickness of the guard or the width of the guard off of how thick the handle is.
Are you passionate about knife making or looking to start a new hobby that could turn into a profitable craft? I have an exciting offer just for you. Introducing the Pocket Buoy Starter Course, my easy to follow knife making course designed specifically for beginners. Keith says, I thoroughly enjoyed this course. It was very nice seeing the entire build be made using simple everyday tools. Don't miss out on this incredible offer. Click the link in the description below and enroll in the Pocket Buoy Starter Course today. Join our community and start your journey to becoming a skilled knife maker. Thanks for your time, and I will see you in the course. Now that the handle and fittings are completely shaped, it's time to do our platinum inlay. The next step is to dovetail our grooves. The dovetails will hold the platinum in place mechanically. Here's how the platinum inlay looks after sanding everything down nice and flush with some 320 grit. The inlay looks nice and we're done with it on the front spacer. Let's move on to the guard. Here's how the finished platinum inlay looks on the guard and front spacer. There's one more embellishment to add, and that's the small rounded groove that goes around the front spacer.
I'm using a chainsaw file to cut in this round groove, and I'm trying to be very careful to not slip outside of my groove. If I slip, I'm gonna put some really deep gashes right on the surface of the front spacer, right across the platinum, and I'm gonna try to avoid that at all costs. I go around the front spacer several times with the file, slowly fine-tuning how it looks and adjusting it to get it as close to perfect as I can. Once that's done, I wrap sandpaper around my file and hand sand the groove.
Here's how the decorative groove looks after doing 320 and 600 grit.
Halo bang, sambil nonton Gil. Sambil nonton bang. Ngelamun soalnya kesambet nanti. Kesambet nanti. Mana apa ceritanya? Yeah.
Here's the handle after rubbing on it with the sunshine cloth for a few minutes.
Nobar
I think it looks very nice. It's very shiny. We are done working on the handle now until the rest of the knife is finished and we've got the handle glued up. Now that the handle's buffed, I want to move on to finishing out the blade.
Karena game ini sangat membosankan, Bang.
I'm going to wash the blade off really well with Dawn dish soap and some warm water and a sponge. Got the blade cleaned off. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the ferric chloride mixture. It's been about a minute. Let's take it out and see how it looks. Whoa. Oh, I love the pattern. It's so fine, but there's definitely something different about it compared to a standard W twist. It's been about 7 minutes total. I'm gonna take the blade out, rinse it off, and then we're gonna get it neutralized.
40 menitan bang, udah kayak ringkasan cerita. Bang Ibnu nggak login lagi kah? Nggak login. Kita belum kawanan sih kayaknya, jadi nggak kelihatan. Jadi malas.
Here's how the blade looks after coffee darkening it. I had it in the coffee solution for just over 6 hours. If you look closely, the entire blade has a little bit of a yellowish tint to it, especially on the 15 and 20 parts of the steel. We want to take care of that yellowish tint now, because I don't want to leave it yellow. I want to brighten that steel up to a nice silvery color. So my trick for doing that is to use sunshine cloth.
Kayaknya kan bisa dicari. Harusnya sehari 200 biji dapat katanya. Ada sih yang petani mampir juga di sini kemarin tuh. 200 sehari mesti dapat bang kalau nyepam geter aja.
For the final stage of etching and coffee darkening, we're going to be doing a carnauba wax finish
Cuma ya
on the
10
blade.
jamnya dibagi, kata dia 5 jamnya nyepam 5 jamnya spam rip gitu.
Let's try the wax. I think the blade should be pretty warm now. Oh yeah. Get it down on that fuller first.
Oh yeah, bisa juga.
I love how everything came out. The etch came out nice. The coffee darkened finish came out really nice. And the wax on top of it all looks really good. So we have a nice shiny blade that also has a pretty durable finish, helping to protect the carbon steel. There's one more thing we've got to finish before we can put this whole knife together, and that's the fittings. They currently have a 600 grit finish on them. We need to sand these fittings up to 3000 grit, get them buffed, and then do the gun bluing finish on them to turn them nice and jet black and make that platinum inlay pop.
The gun bluing process reflects any finish that you have on your metal. So if you have random stray scratches, you're going to see those even more prominent after the gun bluing. So I'm doing my best to finish these fittings out with a beautiful, clean mirror finish without random stray scratches.
Jadi ya resource yang didapetin ya buat upgrade.
Here are the fittings after doing the 2-stage buffing. I think they came out beautifully. They have a nice mirror finish and are ready for gun bluing.
Kalau gue resource-nya buat macam-macam.
I'm gonna go ahead and get the front spacer into the
keren, mantap.
cleaning solution here.
40% udah 2 ini semua tuh gitu. 3 baris.
Next up, we'll get the guard clean and get it in the solution.
Keren, mantap dong Cang. Tapi nggak tahu mau tuh. Right lah.
Okay, once you put it in, you gotta keep it in there. Bend that wire over. I need to turn the heat up a little bit because it kind of slowed down
Cari
from the
kawan
boil.
ngerayat sih harusnya tidak membuat ente bosan gitu.
The guard's been in the cleaner for 6 or 7 minutes now. We can go ahead and take it out
ya.
into the bluing salts.
Selain ketemu kawan-kawan baru ya ada raid baru mungkin.
Okay.
Cuma ya mesti
That was a perfect
30 sih.
Heat up. Up.
Baru enak lu cari kawan.
It's been about 8 minutes. We can go ahead and take out the front spacer. I'm gonna take it out, rinse it off with some running water, and then get it into the boiling water right away. Oh boy, look at that. It sure looks good when it's wet. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Wow, it sure looks good when it's wet like that.
Apa gua tadi siang live
I
di
let the
TikTok kan
fittings sit in the
main
water
sih untuk
displacing oil
bersosial doang,
overnight
Bang.
and then took them out of the oil and cleaned the oil off so
Dirimu,
we could see
dirimu
how the bluing
sudah
looks.
bergaji mungkin
I've
cukup
inspected
ya
the
di
parts
sana.
all the way
Jadi
around and couldn't really find any
game
imperfections in the
benar-benar
bluing,
untuk
so I
kesenangan
think we're good
aja
to go.
gitu.
The bluing looks amazing on both pieces.
Nggak ada
Everything is
plus-plusnya.
almost ready to do
Nggak
the
masalah
final
sih.
glue up assembly.
Yang
There's
penting
one more
dirimu
thing though that'll be a
bahagia.
little bit easier to do now than it will be after the
Temburang nggak
handle's
sih?
all glued on, and
Temburang
that
nggak
is to
sih
get the
sama orang
blade
bulannya
sharpened.
anjing?
I'm going to start all the way back here at the base of the edge and then go all the way down the blade to the tip.
If you're wondering why I have the blade covered with Scotch office tape, well, it's because I want to protect the Damascus. I don't plan on laying this blade down too flat as I'm sharpening
Ya
it, but
dengerinnya
just
bisa
in
lebih
case I
fokus
lay it
kali
down
ya,
too
kita
flat or
bahasa.
I end up
Kita
like
bahasa.
hitting it with the side of the belt or
Yang
something, I
bahasa
don't want
Inggris
to
cuekin
scratch up
aja.
our beautiful Damascus finish. I finished the sharpening process out with a leather belt that has some buffing compound applied to it. This will leave
Gua
a
sulit
nice
kalau mau
shiny
sih,
edge
Bang.
that's very sharp.
Lama banget gua, udah setengah tahun lah ya. Terakhir itu sebulannya cuma 200.000, gila. Gila. Saingannya bukan lagi sama human, sama bot kata gue. Udah sulit deh. Apalagi botnya nggak login weh. Cuma pakai program doang, malah mantap.
Now I can take a popsicle stick and start stirring this epoxy up really well. And I'll add a little bit more for the front spacer. Add the front spacer on. Next, I want to cover the tang in epoxy.
Dari nyari acian
Next up, we'll go
energi aja
ahead
gue
and
nggak
fill
pernah
the
dapat
handle
kata
up
gue.
from the inside.
Ada aja tapi tiap hari yang dapat. Dan itu bukan gue. Capek aja. Harapin suatu hal yang nggak pasti ya. Iya.
Should start to see epoxy just oozing out all over the place.
Oke, mulai ditancepin.
And tip it up this way so the epoxy coming out right here doesn't run up into this taped off area. We wouldn't want that.
Apa mau dibelah? Oh.
We can take this back to the bench and continue cleaning up all the excess epoxy.
Nonton apa? Nonton orang buat Damaskus.
It's the next day. The epoxy has cured, and I removed the entire knife from the handle clamping jig.
Ngeliatin
I also went ahead
crafting
and
udah
covered up the
bosen
guard,
ngeliat
front
ini
spacer, and
apa
the rest of the
namanya
blade
ringkasan
with quite a
cerita.
few
Udah
layers
tamat
of
semua
tape,
kayaknya gue.
because we're about ready to do the pins in the handle. Once these pins are in the handle, this knife will be finished.
Sebelum ini gue ngeliat restorasi dari
they
restorasi
filled with
kita.
epoxy, and I need to drill all that out. The pins I'm adding in are solid platinum to match the platinum
Seru aja.
inlays. Instead of doing flush pins with this handle, I'm doing domed pins. So the head of the pin will actually stick up above the surface of the handle material a little bit. I form a small head on the pin using the hammer.
Mantap pas lagi
Kind of think of it like
nempa-nempanya
an
itu
old-fashioned
berkali-kali kan
rivet.
buat pola
We
mereka.
have these little tiny rivet heads holding the pin in place on each side of the handle. I clean up the heads of the pins with sandpaper, Scotch-Brite wheels, buffing wheels, all that kind of stuff.
Kalau ngomongin gue nggak bersosial sama sekali kata gue bilang gitu. Dia ternyata kawan guild gue yang pertama kali gue masukin itu kan. Jadi guild pertama gue kalau nggak di maksud gue kalau nggak di senggol-senggol gue mana ngomong gitu kan. Guild yang pertama itu suka nyenggol gitu. Tapi yang kedua ini cuek ya cuek juga lah gue. Cuek juga. Mereka suka nyenggol, ada yang mau digebeng nggak ini Kak Divine katanya. Iya.
And just like that, the Catalyst dagger is finished. I love how this dagger came out. This is definitely the most elaborate boot dagger I've ever done before. Some of my favorite things about this dagger are the
Ternyata dia
Damascus
sudah
pattern.
pensi,
That
balik lagi ke
mosaic twist
scene.
came out really
Gua mah
awesome.
kagak kata gue.
I love the finish on the gun blued steel fittings with platinum inlay. The
Gue
platinum
itu
inlay
udah
looks a little
overtime
more
banget,
subtle
men,
than
sih,
the
kata.
gold inlay, but I think it still looks
Nggak
very nice.
diajak ya,
And
udah
I'm
ya,
happy
Bang.
that I was
Iya.
able to inlay that
Konsepnya
platinum
gitu
after
aja.
how hard I found the wire to be. I also think the dyed and stabilized
Kalau nggak
handle
disebut
came
apa
out
gimana ya
beautiful.
udah gitu,
It's
nggak
got
usah nimbrung, nggak
a
usah balas
super lustrous
set
shine
gue,
on it, and
udah
I
sulit.
love the domed platinum pins. These pins are so
Enggak, gua
small
kalau
and
dibilang
delicate compared to my
bersosial
normal
ya
16th inch pins, and I think they add a nice touch of elegance to this dagger, especially since
paling gue
this dagger
ngobrol
is
kayak
pretty small
gini ya
itself.
sama
To
yang
wrap up, my
mampir di
last
channel
favorite thing
gue
about this
gitu.
dagger is the blade shape and profile. Not only the profile this way, but the profile this direction as well. I love how much of a taper I ended up grinding into the blade. It starts
Gue
out
udah
pretty
overtime
thick and
banget ketika gue
chisel-like
main
here, and then it
DNC itu
tapers out
10
nice and
karakter
thin
gue
to the tip.
Pak
Overall,
ngabisin
with the
FTG.
thickness and size of the
Bahkan
blade,
kalau
it's really
kurang
got
gue
that
minum
vibe I was
lagi
going for. I
FTG.
wanted this real stabby kind
Udah
of
gitu
vibe when you're holding
weekly.
it. It's not a super
Weekly
thin,
itu
light
bonus,
cutter.
alnes,
It's
alcar.
definitely got this kind of
Bayangin.
chisel-like,
Bayangin.
stabby, stout vibe going on.
Sehari
and
itu 2 sampai
I
3
absolutely
karakter.
adore that.
I will see
Gue kalau
you
belum
in the
limit
next
ngamuk-ngamuk
video.
gue
May the
gitu.
forge be with you.
Padahal dapat duit juga kagak gitu bahasanya kan. Bisa bayar speedy juga enggak. Dedikasinya tinggi tapi bayarannya tidak sesuai. Wah kacau. Gitar semua sih. Gitar lah, tadi tuh kayaknya ada gitar ini dia PRS ya. Restorasi nih coba restorasi. Pistol. Nah ini nggak ada suaranya lagi. Ini tadi rame banget suaranya. Bingung mau spam di mana lagi. Spam LJ bang. Konsepnya gini aja, kalau nggak geter lu keluar gitu aja, pasti banyak kayaknya. Misalnya geter itu bisa berapa kali langsung damage kayaknya keluar. Daripada yang nggak geter gitu yang normal. Gua kalau habis daily 15 kali, gua kayak gitu aja mainnya. Nggak geter ya balik lagi gitu, jadi nggak ngabisin waktu. Ini dari mantap dari buat gitar pupil. Dia buat gitar lagi nggak cok?
In this video, you're going to see me take some incredibly beautiful wood and spend over 400 hours turning it into the most
Ya pilihannya kalau nggak
and
gold
what I
kan
think might
DNP
be
sih.
one of the best sounding guitars that I've ever made. Stick
Kalau
around
DNP
and
kan
I'll show you the full build and
modal
share some
dirimu
tips
lebih
and
gede
tools that I
gitu.
used while making this guitar.
Pilihannya bebas sih.
I'll also explain a little bit of the
DNP
story
juga banyak
behind
yang
the
jual
wood and why
SFC
we're
sih,
calling this
harusnya
guitar the
gampang, tinggal beli
Phoenix.
aja.
At the end, you get to see the finished product and you'll get to hear this thing. And trust me,
Fokus di
you're
gold
really
juga
gonna
bisa
want to stick
ditukar
around to hear
DNP
it.
gitu.
So let's get started.
Hey folks, it's
Kalau
Matt
mau
here.
buat
I have the
fokus kan
honor and
bisa.
privilege of getting to kick
Atau
this build off.
uang jajan
So for the back
gitu.
and sides of this instrument, we decided to go with this absolutely stunning piece of Zero-Cote. It's an incredibly visually striking tone wood and great sounding too, but if you've never worked with Zero-Cote before, I'm always startled by how brittle and fragile it is. Chris likes to compare it to woodworking with saltine crackers, and I'm inclined to agree. Once the back has been book matched and very carefully comes out of our plate joining jig, again, this wood is pretty fragile, it's onto the soundboard.
DNP dari
The
daily
wood
nggak
for the
bisa jadiin
soundboard
dari
is
apa ya?
Western Red Cedar
Bisa.
from British Columbia, Canada, and this wood is where our name for
Nggak
the
bisa
guitar
di trade,
Phoenix
tapi
actually came from.
ya bisa
There's a
pindahin
little bit of
saldo sih
backstory
harusnya.
to this piece of cedar, but I
Tapi
will let Chris explain more on that later.
jangan dipakai
For
dulu
now, I'm
deh,
going to
kan
book
kita
match
mau
and
reset
join these top
DNP
pieces
lagi
with
nih.
a plate joining jig, and
Makanya
then
ini aja
it's
gue
on to
stop
the
bang,
next step in the process.
nggak gue use gitu.
After a couple of passes on the drum sander to remove a little bit of
Kalau di
glue
use
that we
bakalan
have,
ke
we
reset
can then
nol
head up
nanti
to the
sayang
CNC
kan
machine
kalau
and
nggak
have it
dibeliin
cut
apa
out
dulu
our
gitu.
sound hole install the channel for our rosette, and then it'll cut the actual perimeter of the guitar out so that we have
Kalau nggak
something
dipakai
that's
dulu,
beginning for the first time to look like an actual
walaupun bisa
guitar.
mantau ya
Now, Matt
berita
mentioned a few
ofisialnya
minutes
di
ago that
Discord.
this cedar has an interesting story attached to it.
Kalau mau direset bener-bener mau direset biasanya dikasih
Our
tahu
good buddy
seminggu
Aaron
sebelum.
Lucas, who is the owner of Dark Forest,
Jadi,
actually gave us
bisa
this wood
ngabisin
about a
dulu.
year ago. And the story of this
Kayaknya
lumber
kemarin
is
tuh
it
pas
actually started out as
event
a
DC-DC
British
ya,
Columbia, Canada.
Irinnya
In
ngomong mau direset
1939,
lagi.
there was a wildfire that wiped out an entire hillside.
Enggak,
That
kupon nggak
hillside
bakal
included
hilang.
the tree that this wood
Jaminan
actually
dari dia
originates from.
karena cuma
The
ngilangin
burned out
saldo
remains
aja.
of that tree actually sat on that hillside for another 63
Ngereset
years
saldo di
until the year
X11.
2002 when somebody harvested it for its lumber. It then sat and air dried for another 22 years, and in the year
Itu
2024,
makanya sekarang ke split
Aaron Lucas,
gara-gara ada
that's the
announcement
wood
begitu
you see.
yang jualan kupon makin
Aaron
banyak
makes it his
kan,
life's
banyakin
goal
banyak yang
to
nggak
curate
use juga
wood with
gitu.
an interesting story. So if you'd like to
Bisa
learn more,
menurut kena
you
riset
can
ya
have a look
mungkin
at his
buat
products
stok
down below and go
dagang
check them
nanti
out.
after.
So like I said before, this wood is
Baru-baru
incredibly
reset
hard.
kemarin
Taking the
biasanya
precautionary step here
rednya.
and using some Stumac number 10 super glue in the more fragile spots to try
Berarti
and
satu
help
banding
stabilize
satu
the
bisa
piece.
100 ya.
This is one of those
Kan
times where
mantap.
the cost in super glue and the time it takes to do this
Tapi
extra
atau
step will definitely
atau
pay
cuma
off in the long
70
run
juga
when
ya
we
kita
do
nggak
the
tahu
sides.
sih.
They're eventually going to be laminated anyway, so this is just going to hopefully save us some head and heartache in the next step. Speaking of the next step, we're going to go ahead and bend these sides into something that more closely resembles
Tergantung
a guitar.
juga kan supply demand ada
Chris is
yang
going to
ambil
step
apa
in here
enggak
and help
gitu.
because I've never actually played
Sapernya
this
rame
record
apa
before,
enggak gitu.
and it definitely has its own unique character while it's being bent.
Ini kayaknya hari ini banyak banget yang jual gold.
Oil content and the composition of their fibers. So I
Tunggu
was
kemarin
definitely
gelap.
glad to have his expertise here because the last thing I want to do is accidentally break these brittle sides while I'm bending them.
Oh banyak kayak gitu
Now,
biasanya
just
mereka
repeat that for
turun-turunin
the
dah
other side and
sampai
for the other two laminate pieces, and then
Udah
we're
laku.
on to the next part.
Which is laminating the sides, and I know
gitu
for
juga
folks
dengan
that
DNP
actually
sekarang
play
udah rate
guitar and
30.000
know
per
about
100
guitar building,
KDNP.
you hear laminate sides and you think, wow, isn't that something
Paling
that we
murah
only
sih ya,
see
32
on cheap
mungkin ya.
guitars? But I think that means that I'm just not doing a good enough job of explaining what it is that I'm doing here that is different than what you commonly hear as laminate sides. Laminate sides in the industry typically means plywood, which is just thin veneers of wood that are
Aneh
glued
gue
together
YouTube gue ini nggak
to make
direkomendasiin
something that's
lagi.
thicker and stronger.
TikTok gue
But
ya
none of
begitu,
those
tai
plies are
bener
really good,
emang.
high quality, solid woods. What we're doing here is we're actually using two full thickness sets of sides and then
Gue
laminating
buat
them
akun
together
baru
over a
lagi aja
vacuum.
nanti.
And what we end up with is all of the benefits of the original tone wood with its full thickness and its full beauty.
Ya sampai
But
ngantuk
also
sampai
we make
tidur-tidur
the
udah
sides
bangun
much,
gini.
much stiffer.
Habis
which is going
ke
to
cari
help
lagi
increase the acoustic properties of this guitar in a very
spam
large
cari
way.
getar.
And that's because by having a very stiff rim of the guitar, it allows the soundboard and the back of the guitar to vibrate more freely and with more of their energy not being wasted in vibrating the sides. Because in my opinion, the sides of the guitar never really did much in the way of contributing to the overall sound of the guitar in the first place. And I'm here to tell you that once I started doing this, I was shocked by the difference that it made in the overall sustain that every guitar had. So it's one of those things that I did one time, and I will never build a guitar without doing it in the future because it's a little bit of work on the front end, but my God, does it make a difference in the final product. And now that we've got those sides pretty much all buttoned up, we can move our attention back over to the soundboard where we're going to begin bracing it up. And this is my favorite part of every guitar build because it's where I'm actually going to give the instrument its voice.
Oh,
I'll
itu dia
get
tuh.
one shot at this,
Baru mau
and I
ditempel.
won't know if the decisions that I made right now are going to be the right choices until I get strings on the guitar, which for me won't be for another few months. Which kind of makes this entire step like a science project every single time. I have to look at my notes from previous builds and try to take that information and take out of it what I think is going to be useful for this build, because remember, these woods are not going to react like the woods from the last build because they're from a different tree and they have different levels of density and elasticity, and a lot of times they're just different species altogether. So I just think it's really cool that there's no doing it correctly. There's just trying to do it the best that you can to get the outcome that you're trying to achieve. And there's a beauty in that. And what you see me doing here is actually gluing on all of the braces in one foul swoop in our fancy tool called a go-bar deck, which is just basically a really primitive tool.
Ini kebetulan kan habis double drop kemarin itu naik sampai 1600-an ya, udah habis 300.
Looks really cool. At this point,
ngabisin itu
past me
dulu
was
baru
trying
nanti
to show you
kita
guys what
cari-cari
the
lagi
soundboard
gitu.
looked like and what it sounded like when I had it at this point, which was
Nah, kalau
the point before I
sudah
started
dua
shaving these
digit,
braces to make
dia
it
dua digit biasanya gue nyari.
So I held it
Udah
up
di
and I
bawah
tapped on
100
it to show you guys how stiff it sounded.
terakhir tuh begitu
Unfortunately, I
soalnya.
don't have any of that audio,
Mapis ya
but I
masih
can tell
stok
you
sih
that it
banyak
was
sih
very, very quick
800-an.
decaying, and it sounded
Untuk
like
buka
a 2x4.
gerbangnya itu kan
So you
kadang
just have to
gratis
use your
juga kan
imagination.
malahan.
What you see me doing here is initially shaving down some of these braces to a place
Bakal
that's
bisa
kind
cepet
of in the
progres sih bang
ballpark
kalau
of where
kata
I
gua
think that they
ya.
need to
Lu
be.
nyari gold juga
The
bisa
reason I
ditukar
do
ke
this is because I can't just go
DMP dan nggak
immediately to
pusing.
voicing this top without getting some information first. So by shaving them now, getting them to a place where they're in that ballpark, I can
Lebih
remove it
cepet
from
dari
the
official
frame
gitu.
and then get a sense of
Iona
how
kan di
much more
official
material
7
still
juta
needs to
satu
be
biji woy.
removed before I get to that magical place that I'm trying to
Curang.
get to, where the top is
Lu
strong enough
mesti
to
top up
hold
beneran
the
dah.
pen, but also loose enough to be as musical as it possibly can be. Okay, we have the initial voicing
Di sini
done on
paling
this
400
top. It looks
KDNP
real
sebiji
nice.
sih ya katanya.
I've stopped at this point
400
so that we can
KDNP
listen how it
itu
feels.
3
Still
taruh
feels a little
35 kali
stiff to me.
4.
I don't use any sort of a lot of
70,
guys do
70,
reflection
140 ribu,
testing,
150 ya,
sonic
150
responses,
satu ring,
oscilloscopes, and all
jauh
this
banget
stuff. I do it
perbedaannya.
old school. I do it using
Kalau
a
pengen
feel.
ngerasain Iona gitu.
That along with checking my notes and seeing what I've done on other guitars, but I don't just copy and paste what the other notes said either. I use it as a way to get me in the ballpark. And this is getting close, but it's not quite there yet. But what I want to do now is
Mumpung masih murah gitu harganya. Mumpung masih murah harganya. Punya uang berapa tuh jadinya?
So what you guys should be
600
listening
ribu
for there is
mungkin
not
udah
necessarily the
4
note or
sudah
anything like
selesai.
that, but what you're listening for is that level of decay, how long this top keeps vibrating. It does seem a lot more resonant, and it's reacting
Kalau langsung 6 POD
to
gimana?
a lighter touch, which is really nice. So
6 POD
we're
bisa
probably
langsung bisa
80% of the way
dibeli sih
there,
bang.
but what I'm going to do now is
Parnya.
really take some time. Shaping
Parnya
these
bisa dibeli
braces
lewat
to get to
TH.
where I'm in that sweet
Banyak
spot
kok yang
where
jual.
they're mostly
Kalau ada DNP
usable,
aja.
but before they start losing their strength.
DNP atau gol ya, dilihat
So
aja
just
sih
keep
yang
popping
jual.
them off, and the next time you guys
Pakai
hear
apa?
it should be in its final form.
Atau beli jadi.
The main thing that's
Beli jadi
different
di
this
market
time when
pesan
I
sih
start
bisa.
hogging off wood is
Saya
that I'm
sebenarnya.
paying much closer attention.
Yang penting
You'll see
deal-dealan
that
harga
I'm removing
gitu.
the bulk of the material from the side of the braces because this allows me to
Daripada beli guide star
without
satu sih
using
harusnya
too
mahal
much
ya harga di
wood,
TH tuh.
which is
Ada
just
guide
kind of
star
like free
tradable
energy, and I like to capitalize on that as
yang
much as
dijual.
possible. I'll also
Daripada lu
cross-reference
mesen
all of
sama
my
orang
notes
gitu
from
yang
previous
nyetok,
builds at this
memang beneran
point
nyetok gitu.
and do a bunch of really fine little sanding here and there that you're not going to see on camera before I'll call it all done. But I think the finished result on this one is awesome. All right, we're voiced at this point. It feels really, really nice. It's got just the perfect amount of flex on it.
Langsung ya kita bilang di sini bukan nyepam gitu.
Nothing I can translate in a video.
Kalau
It's a
nyepam
feel
ya banyak
thing, and it
perusahaannya
feels
gitu.
right where I like
Lo
it
mesti
to be.
buat al
Listen
karakter
to this
gitu
tap tone
buat
on
main
here,
weekly
and,
ya
I'll
kan.
do a little quick AV so you can see where we started. But listen how long this thing rings.
Udah itu pun lo mesti WTW gitu ngabisin torsi. Di situ juga lo perlu star sih kalau mau ngambil sendiri. Star buat ngubah ini dari EOD biasa ke Ancient ya.
So I'm
Kelihatan
really,
nggak
really
sih?
happy with that.
Ininya nggak kelihatan.
Now
Ya.
that the top is all voiced, we can then put our attention back onto the
Ancient
sides.
kan,
where
ini
we're
EOD
gonna be
biasa
notching
kan,
them so
Ancient
that we
bisa
can take
4
that
slot
soundboard
gitu di bawahnya.
to the rim of the guitar.
Aja
We do
sih,
this by
pakai
using
star berapa
a
biji gitu.
template that shows us where all of the braces are going
Nyari
to go.
starnya di
And then we
WTW,
carefully
ada
notch
itemnya
it
di
with
NPC
chisels
tersebut.
and little hand saws so that everything fits really nice and tight. And then we go back over to the go bar deck and get that top
Itu
glued down. And here's the money shot, the one we've all been waiting for, that beautiful soundboard paired with the sides, and you have the most luthery of all the luthery pictures you can have. Okay, we've got the soundboard glued to the rim, and I knew the moment that I pulled it out of the go bar deck that it was going to sound really good, because even just me kind of like holding on to the rim here is making a noise, but wait till you hear this tap tone on here at this point. It's even me talking, it's picking it up, but...
Ini mantap cok. Tapi ini lebih ke low ya.
Really excited, because even when I'm it's good. At this point, we basically just need to do those same steps that we did on the soundboard, but do them on the back this time. So instead of walking you through that entire process
Inventory
again, I'll
space.
take this opportunity
Habis.
to talk about something else.
Habis gue.
And that is to say thank you to each and every one of you who watches these videos. Never in our wildest dreams did we ever think that we would hit 100,000 subscribers, and we are just about to that
Ini nggak ada
number.
silang-silang,
And
dia
Matt and I
cuma
honestly
terus
don't have
begitu
words
aja.
to accurately describe the level of gratitude we have
Gua
for
di
each and
tengah
every one of
satu.
you for watching these videos and for subscribing to us. Our goal has always been to just try to put out
Suaranya dari
entertaining videos, and our hope is that you guys are
Jadi
inspired and
tutup
maybe you
kan.
learned something along the way. But basically, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks from the bottom of our hearts. And now that I'm
Halo,
done with
selamat
that,
datang
we
yang
can get back
satunya.
to this
Gitu.
build. And what do you know? The whole
Ayo
body
nih,
is now closed up at this point, and we can finally take it out of the mold.
Tanya apa nih? Siapa tahu
And
bisa
get
gue
the
jawab
finishing
ya.
touches done on it so that we can move
Tanya
on to
apa
the
aja
paint
bang?
here sooner than
Tanya
later.
apa aja.
But before we can do that, we need to remove all of the extra material.
Kalau
that's
gue
made
nggak tahu
on the
nanti
sides
tanya
of this body.
ChatGPT.
And we're going to do that with this router bit.
Ini
that Matt
kayaknya
has
masih full
called the
screen layar gue.
Widowmaker. This thing is an absolute beast. And besides trying to make sure that you don't lose a finger with it, the other thing that we really have to pay attention to is our grain direction so that we don't get a whole bunch of tear out, which would really ruin our day. But we managed to not do that here, and we have this beautiful closed up body, and it's looking really good. And the next thing we need to do is go over to the vacuum clamp, because I need to get these sides really, really nice and level before we can do the next step, which is going to be installing the binding for the guitar. And the reason I need everything to be as absolutely flat as possible, because the channel that I'm going to route that the binding is going to go in is going to use the sides of the guitar as a reference point to cut said channel. So if it's not flat and it has a bunch of waves in it, we're going to end up with all of those waves translated into the channel that is cut. But because we
Harus
took our
LB
time
berapa
to do
tuh
it right
bang?
the
Oh
first
iya,
time,
ada
we don't have to
pertanyaan
worry
lagi.
about that. So then we can head over to this
15
weird
bisa
little
kok.
jig
Gue aja masih spam 15. Itu pilihannya 11, 15, 20. WTW Watchtower ya.
That we took our time getting them nice and level. So we're gonna ride this bucking bronco very,
Oh,
very
karena
carefully
20-nya masih belum kuat gitu, gue main 15
that
aja.
are going to perfectly
Gak
match
usah terlalu
the
dipusingin ya,
binding that we're gonna be
kuatnya
installing
seberapa
here.
gitu.
And you can see how the end result came out here.
Kuat itu
And just like we
gini,
bent up
kalau
our
di
sides
akhir
earlier,
stage lo
we're
nggak
gonna
bisa
use the side
nge-kill
bending
200
machine to
skill,
bend up our wood
ya itu nggak
binding.
kuat. Jadi
And it
bosnya
occurs
nggak
to me that
bakalan
I actually
keluar
haven't
gitu
talked
loh.
about this yet in this video, but we're actually going to be using
Sayang kan,
Ebony
ngabisin
to trim
kunci
up the
aja,
entire
ngabisin
instrument.
port doang.
Macassar Ebony is a little bit different than
Bosnya nggak
Typical
keluar,
Ebony,
hitungan
which
bosnya
is
tuh lumayan
probably
soalnya.
which is an African Ebony.
Di situ gue
the
bilang
most
nggak
highly
kuat,
prized
makanya gue masih
because
jalan di
it's
15
basically
juga.
black. And to me, it doesn't look a whole lot different than black plastic.
Oke,
So
spam
I
WT,
actually
iya
really
boleh sih
prefer
bang,
this
spam WT
plastic
dicoba.
because it looks like it's actually wood. There's something interesting to look at.
Kalau bosnya nggak keluar, nah
And
di
I just
situ
feel
lo
like,
nggak
you
kuat
know,
bang, mending
wood should
turun.
look like wood, not plastic.
Harus keluar
So
sih,
we're
gue
gonna use some
pikir ya, kalau nggak
epoxy
keluar
and
rugi.
binding, some
Itu
rubber
sudah
bands to glue
habis
that in,
torch
and the
banyak.
end result is this nasty mess you
Nggak
see
keluar,
right here.
iya
But
mending
worry
turun
not,
laps
because
ya.
we are going to use our amazing
Jauh juga
surf
gapnya,
plate surf
15-20.
to get
Gue aja
this
belum
thing
mampu
totally
20.
sanded down and looking really good. I'm using card scrapers on the side, and we'll get rid of
Spam
all
WT
the
bang,
epoxy.
kalau bingung
And
mau
at this
ngapain
point,
ya,
I think I'm
terusnya
gonna
banyak
let Past
gitu.
Chris show you how it all came out.
Gue jadiin anciennya
Okay, we've
minimal.
got all of the sides leveled on here, and it's looking super
And
good.
chain
And the
weapon.
body's basically done at this point, but the only thing I have left to do is put an end graft
So
on it.
itemnya bisa dibeli
And I
pakai
was digging through
star.
my drawers looking for some wood, different kind of drawers. I was digging through those, and I found this end graft that I made for a client's guitar a couple of years ago.
Kalau yang
He,
lawan
for
bos
some
satu
reason, didn't
biji
like
itu
it.
nggak
Well,
direkomendasiin
we're gonna
katanya,
use it on
mending
this
farm
guitar
itu yang
because it
sekali
looks super
pencet
good.
50
I think it'll do a really nice
50
job of
torch,
tying
50
all of the
torch itu, tapi
sapwood
ya
on this guitar
nyampe bar penuh,
into
bosnya
itself.
harus
So
keluar gitu dengan
I
cara
don't
lo
have to do
kirim
much here
200.
except for make a pocket for this to go in, and then we're gonna epoxy it in, and this body is totally done. And then we can move on to the neck. The process of putting the end graft in is pretty straightforward. We're going to use a Fordham tool, which is basically a high horsepower Dremel tool, to create a pocket that is the exact same depth
Buat
and just
kuncian
about the
lagi.
exact same width as the end graft that we
Precision
previously made.
builder
And then we'll take some really
base.
sharp chisels and our optimizers and work our way around to get nice
Mantap
square
karena kalau
edges.
tiba-tiba
And then that end
lagi
graft
finishing kayak
fits
gini
just
salah,
absolutely
waduh,
perfectly
ketak
snug.
pala.
We'll take some
Ketak
5-minute
pala.
epoxy and we're going to put it in place, holding it down with some
Bangke
tape and
lu.
then just putting some very, very light clamping pressure. The 5-minute epoxy makes quick work of it so that we don't have to wait very long for it to dry, and then we can move our attention around to the back of the guitar, where I like to take the end
Mahal
graft and
bener
wrap it
boy,
around. Just
$28,000.
creates a really beautiful visual effect.
Edan.
And for this overhang piece, we can just use a little bit of number 20 super glue because there's not any real pressure that's being put on it. And here's the end result. Looks really, really nice and classy. I wanted to show you guys how
Bisa-bisanya
good
buat
this
telat
guitar
nonton.
sounds so
Telat
far. Believe it
nonton.
or
Gue
not,
pikir
when you
itu
put the
lo
binding
bang satu
on,
itu.
It does the very last little bit of
Kemana
fully
aja, Bang?
sealing off the body and making it airtight, and that
Sibuk
makes
ya,
a
rame ya
substantial
dagangannya.
difference. I was just showing Matt. I don't know that I've ever had such a good
Selamat
tap time
kalau
on the guitar
rame.
body
Alhamdulillah
at this point
rezekinya
in the
nyan
build.
lancar berarti kan. Ya, mantap mantap. Mantap ya, selamat
It's just got this
malam.
second wave of sound that comes out of it, a little bit beyond when I initially hit. I go like it hits, it dies, and then it blooms again. It's gonna be good.
Gue kemarin juga live siang
With that,
bang,
I'm
live
gonna set this
siang.
aside.
Nggak kedengeran
and
juga
we'll
ya
get
sama
started
dia.
on the neck.
Gue suka random terus sekarang malah
Like I said earlier in this video, Matt and I really
kesiran
want to
gue
try to make
jadinya.
videos
Ini
of
aja
the
tadinya nggak ada orang, jadi gue
Figure
sambil
that
nonton.
way, you guys are entertained and you're not stuck
Kecil aja
watching
gua
a
tadi.
movie. With that said, in order to show you guys an
Oh.
entire guitar build, something's
Jadi nggak
gotta
dagang
go.
tuh hari ini.
And on this particular build, we've decided that we're gonna kind of just glaze
Maksudnya
over
nggak
the
ada
neck.
tuh.
I'm gonna do my best to make sure you
Nggak
guys have a
ngapa-ngapain
sense of
ya.
what goes into it, but I'm not
Dia
gonna.
udah nggak main PUBG lagi.
Our previous video that we shot in this series did cover the
Banyak
entire
tuh ya
neck build,
pertanyaan.
so if you're interested, feel free to go check
Jadi
it out.
bagaimana ceritanya
What
mobil
you're
laptop
seeing on
tuh
your
bang?
screen now is me finishing up making the
Ditungguin
fretboard
sama Bang
using
Ibnu
the
tuh.
machine
Ayo mabor,
called
gitu. Ayo mabor.
Ebony, the same wood that we're making all of the binding on this guitar out of. And here's how she looks hot off the
Terus
press.
bang sampai
And you'll notice
sampai
that
sampai
there's
mentok
actually no fret
langit ya.
markers at all on this fretboard. I want to leave it really nice and clean.
Capek ahlunya percuma
Guitar has
nanti
just
ya.
a very nice clean
Belum
aesthetic.
tahu.
It does all the talking.
Ini jauh
This
cuma
one, we use
satu
a
ya.
jig and
Ya
cut
udah
our
lah ya.
mortise and tenon.
Ya
Our
udah.
tenon goes in the neck first, and that's what you can see here.
Ya nggak apa-apa lah ya.
Real nice. Then we'll flip that jig around, attach it to the body, and then cut our mortise into it. And the two are going to fit
Mungkin masih banyak yang lebih diutamakan
Next comes
ya.
the process of making sure that the neck actually fits
Atau
the
memang
body
uangnya
at
kurang
the
banyak.
exact right
Kurang
angle.
banyak.
And we're going to do this using a technique called flossing, where I take sandpaper and remove material from the cheeks of the neck until I eventually get the exact angle that I'm looking for. I can then drill my holes for the bolts to go through and then install my barrel nuts into the tenon of the neck.
Nah, kita balik lagi. Balik lagi ke DragonNest. Jadi dengar bahasa Inggris ngerti kagak ngantuk ya. Jam 8 woy, udah kayak jam 12 aja ini buset. 1 M dapet lah hari ini, ayo. Itu sih udah ngantongin berapa ratus itu mas. Genung. Ternyata genung. Carilah dia gitu. Kemarin kan sama-sama main ngedur semua lah pokoknya double drop. Masa gini Doni itu ada 4.000, gua ada 1.600 sih. Gila serem kata gua. 4.000 gacor. Lapar pak, TF duit. Tiga ratusan kayak bola nggak amat ngeseling hajatan rewang. Oh alah. Masih sibuk ya, musim orang kawin ya kayaknya. Gacor jombrisnya gua TN mas. TN mas. mana bisa di rip, mana bisa di TF. Kayak bola malah banyak. Wah ya bola itu lah sekali masuk kan dapat 20 tuh. Kalau double dia bahkan 40. Ya di lab 23 sih ya. Atau di lab Getar aja dulu, habisin berapa kali getar doang, paling 300 itu ya, sampai 3 jam udah dapat banyak lagi tuh kunci. Kirain pada frustasi gitu, dropannya makin dikit gitu, makin males gitu. Jadi udah ada satu emblem nih. Oh, banyak yang jual botnya. Malam tuh sepi, punya gua aja langsung sold ya. Besok kali ya. Ada 600 berapa, res 100 ya, mana ada res 100. Jual sama Irin. Jual sama Irin. 60 tuh maklar. Bisa store sendiri Mas Nom. Hubungin aja Eva Walka. Kalau butuh dana cepat ya, butuh dana cepat. Kali 6.000. 6 kali 6 36.000. Getstar 1 biji mantap, selamat bang, semoga kali 10 ya Getstarnya. Enggak laku 600, laku dia terima ecer. Ada jemuran, ada jemuran. Malam kemarin pas banget. Terus ternyata lu sama gua lu buat tempahin stemnya sekalian gitu. sama duit ya, sama duit ya. Dia mau nepas sendiri katanya, taruh bang, sulit. Tungguin ya berminggu-minggu, nanti gamenya tutup duluan lagi, belum 10. Makanya banyak yang orang jual tuh yang pengen kan langsung beli jadi. Banyak karena event-event kemarin itu apa? Lu percaya 100%? Lu percaya? Untuk kopi terpaksa malam ini. Cairin aja, hubungin sendiri sana, hubungin sendiri. Mbak Eva ya, Mbak Eva Walker. Mau beli kopi. Tapi Mas Nung sudah di banned. Kacau. Cari Discord baru dulu. Baru masuk ke Discord ini. GDN. Kayaknya sih tadi sore dia masih open maklar, ya nggak tahu nih malam ini. Kalau kuotannya udah penuh ya udah gitu dia. Udah banyak yang setor kan. Kalau butuh dana cepat tuh maka harus solusinya ya. Dana cepat, pinjol bisa sih, pinjol bisa. Hmm. Edwin ganteng, ganteng betul. Waalaikumsalam Ewin, apa kabar? Gitu, sehat selalu ya. Sehat selalu, bagaimana? Tambah subur ya sekarang ya. Tambah subur. Langsung gua labasin kemana-mana kan ya. Jangan lupa TF Gopay-nya bos gitu. Gak usah sawer-sawer lah, banyak potongan deh, gue kasih nomor GoPay gue aja kan, biar langsung gitu. Oh gue udah main game ini besok, kayak besok beneran aja loh bang. Kata lu beli laptopnya nggak tahu tuh gimana kali. Sulit main sama kakak gue aja tuh, ya sama-sama tua kayaknya, enggak tuan dia, tuan dia. Pertengahan kayaknya lu sumuran sama Alek kayaknya. Alek apa sih, Ewo ya. Umur gua baru 04. 04. 4 tahunnya dibalik. Selamat masuk kapal lambat ya. Enggak woy, belum 39. Nanti Desember ya. Orang assalamualaikum langsung ditege, coba bayangin coba ya. Mampir-mampir di sini kena tege semua bos. Reman isi komentarnya. Ayo gimana, ada yang mau transfer GoPay gitu? Hostnya juga nanyain boleh. Dah. Jangan buat depo-depo aja, bandar tuh kaya. Aduh, janganlah memperkaya bandar-bandar di sono. Sekitar ente aja, sekitar ente. Kalau nggak mau bantu-bantu saya, bantu-bantu share lah ya teman-teman gitu, teman-teman sekalian, share kanan, share kiri langsung bubar. Belum, masih lama nggak lagi. Tergantung sih bang. Ya lamain lah ya, lamain kayaknya kalau nggak ngantuk. Apa-apa lah, nggak usah nonton YouTube dulu. Kalau menonton juga langsung aja deh. Langsung cabut kan, Lakshimahinya ditegein duit sama Genung. Titik kopi, titik kopi. Lewat kopi. Nggak turu-turu deh ngopi lah. Ayo cepet dong beli laptop kan. Nanti servernya ditutup duluan. Yang lamun lagi gitu ya. Atau dibersihin aja PC lu tuh ya, biar bisa login. Intel goldnya. Jadi tayang gue jual lagi biar pas 1 M, biar pas 1 M. Jual aja, taruh lagi. Oh ya Allah. Lagi rame juga yang jual gold mas. Kalau semalam ya harusnya cepet laku sih ya. Hari ini rame banget yang jual. Nggak ada yang beli. Mau naik ke 75 jadi turun lagi karena ini buset. Kayak gitu kan banyak orang yang jual. Yang buyingnya nggak ada. Padahal kemarin juga banyak yang mau borong 65. Ya memang harus perhatiin market gitu. Kalau nggak ada saingannya mah harusnya cepet aja gitu. Apalagi harganya murah. Dia bawa pasaran dicecar orang kan. Masuk keluar lagi kecil. Ya nggak apa-apa lah, sama aja, ini juga cuma 20. Kalau hoki bisa kali 2 kan, NB nya aktif. Jarang NB nya aktif kan. Bisa 3 kali 1, 3 kali 4 kali baru sekali. Sulit tapi mas, sejam juga nggak 100 sih kayak. Kalau bandingin sama yang kemarin mah ya malas jadinya. Nih, ini udah hilang berapa? 1293. Tapi sayang di link itu, di link yang gak kepake. Delay game, delay terus apa? Ntar malam lagi normal itu. Masih delay, masih rame, harusnya bagus ya. Daily point bener, daily aja sih bagus sekali ya. Sejam daily aja dah. Jual AM murah-murahin itu. 20.000 biar cepet. Nah, 19 menit lagi tuh kan. Untung gua ngeliat NB-nya udah mau habis. Kali lagi loh. Pas nih kayaknya. Oke. Kita pulang kota dulu. Masih nge-lag juga di kota, buset. Baru tarik lagi titanium. Jualan titanium, bos. Jual aja. Jual lah. Udah cabut, Mas Nung doang yang nonton, dadah.